We will get started. It's noon, and welcome to everybody. It's the April 8th Midday Rotary Meeting, the Rotary Club of Rochester. I'm Chris Colby, 2021 President of the club this year. We'll start today with Michaela Schmidt is going to lead us in the four-way test. Michaela will read each individual item, and then as she reads the first item, then we'll repeat after her. So, Michaela, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. Of the things we think, say, and do,
First,
is it the truth?
Second, is it
fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And
Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
We do that differently every time, so I guess as long as you get your statement out there, we're all doing it together. I guess that's the important thing. So thank you, Michaela. Julie, I believe you have the inspiration today. Julie Brock.
I do, and I will tell you, the only reason I do is because I think spring break got us, friends. Please go sign up to do the reflection and the vocational and the four-way test. We have nobody signed up right now for the rest of the year. So I'll put that link in the chat, and I just ask that you please go and sign up for something, because you just can't keep hearing from me. You just can't. No. But this is what I wanted to tell you today.
You are an inspiring person, Julie.
This is what I wanted to tell you today. I woke up so excited because it was raining, and that is because I grew up in Oregon, and there was nothing better than falling to sleep and waking up to rain with the windows open. And it made me think about a little poem written by Teddy Kamathi, and it goes like this. Leaves are shallow like bowls as they wait for the clouds to release the rains that have become metaphors or promises frozen in time. The promises are frozen no more. These dark gray clouds are merely an omen for the green light to rejuvenate the earth once more. And I don't know if you've taken time to pause, and I get nervous in Minnesota because I know another snow and another freeze is coming, but the buds are budding, the daffodils are pushing, the crocuses, I think this is how you say it here, are starting to bloom. And there is hope in so many metaphorical ways on the horizon. And so Rotarians, I hope that today you are able to pause and see the rain for the goodness, the promises that are pouring out into our community. And so much of that is because of your resiliency. So thank you so much. And I'm very excited for the program.
Very good. Thank you, Julie. Very well done. I'm inspired by the promise that I can take my snow tires off any day now. So that's the sign that spring is on its way for me. So do we have visitors? Christine, you mentioned that you had a visitor. Do you want to unmute yourself and your visitor and introduce them, please?
Absolutely. So during this time, I've been participating in Tulip Tree has been doing networking roulette, where you get to match with about 3 or 4 other people to connect. Since it's been so hard, we do it virtually. And that's where I met Ryan, Ryan Plattenberger. He's with Country Financial. And he asked during our conversation about Rotary and invited him to check us out today.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Hope you get a good glimpse of who we are, and we're always looking for people that are prospective members. So
Thank you.
Keep in touch.
Will do.
Do we have any other visiting Rotarians? If you are, please make yourself known. I don't see anybody raising their hand here. No other visitors or visiting Rotarians. So welcome, Ryan. As a reminder, just a couple of business related things. Our Rotary online Zoom meetings continue for the foreseeable future. Hopefully the foreseeable future is now beginning to be seeable, but in the We have the Rotary After Hours the first Thursday of the month, and we'll continue our midday Zoom meetings on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month, like this one. Also a reminder that third Thursday small group meetings will continue to be held in whatever format and schedule your group has determined. Your convener will send you the invites. Also bear in mind this month happens to have 5 Thursdays, and in spite of the indication on our Rotary website that it would be rotation day, we're going to replace that with what we're going to call Exploration Day, and we'll have another Zoom meeting. Colin, you might make note of that. We'll need to send out an invite for that 5th meeting of the month. That meeting will focus on giving some consideration and discussion about how we will continue to, how we will emerge, you might say, from this pandemic, and how we will grow and change our club as we move out of this challenging time. And so there are a lot of issues that are on the plate, and we want to get as much input from the membership as we possibly can. So if you could give some thought to that and plan to participate in that April 29th meeting, it would be appreciated. And there'll be more information on this that Audrey and our leadership group is putting together for the moccasin flower. So watch that and give some thought to it. And please plan to join us on the 29th. Past President Colin Aldis has a Paul Harris award to present today. Colin?
Thank you. I want to be sure I'm not on mute.
Oh, you're good.
I'm good. So today, a regular on our program, Dave Mortel. Dave Mortel, and I see Dave is with us today, so congratulations, Dave. And I want to present to him a Paul Harris Fellow Award, and Dave has 5 stones in his pin. Very impressive. Before I read out my sort of normal commentary, in this month's Rotary magazine, the April magazine, on page 25, there was an entire section on Paul Harris Fellow. And I just wanted to read a couple of segments from this. It's titled A Birthday Gift of Giving, A Birthday Gift of Giving. Paul Harris's legacy lives on. And for those of you that are maybe guests or visitors today, I'll just mention who Paul Harris is. So the 19th of April marks the 153rd anniversary of the birth of Paul Harris. And there are a number of ways to commemorate Rotary's founder this month. And in this magazine, it talks about that. Most Rotarians members know this story well. As a lawyer practicing in Chicago at the turn of the 20th century, Paul Harris had the idea of bringing together a group of local businessmen for friendship and to expand their professional networks. Harris persuaded several business associates to meet up and discuss his idea. I'll skip through some of this. On January 27th, in fact, I'll skip a lot of it because the next date is January 27th, 1947. Harris died in Chicago at age 78 after a long illness. He had made it known that he preferred people to contribute to the Rotary Foundation instead of sending flowers. By coincidence, days before he died, Rotary leaders had committed to a major fundraising effort for the foundation. And today, of course, we have a billion dollar foundation that was started with a few dollars 100 years ago. And in honor of that, today, one of those fellows, Dave Mortel, is with us. So now I will read the Paul Harris Fellow recognition. Acknowledges individuals who contribute or who have contributions made in their name of $1,000 or more to the Rotary Foundation. Again, we established this in 1957 to encourage and show appreciation for substantial contributions, and Dave Mortel is certainly a substantial contributor. Its name is for our founder, as we just heard, Paul Harris. Multiple Paul Harris Fellow recognition is given of subsequent $1,000 levels, so-called Paul Harris Fellow Plus. And Dave has plus, 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 plus. And this consists originally or initially of an award, a pin, and then stones to recognize that. From an initial funding of $26, the foundation today has over $1 billion, and I continue to be challenged to actually find out how much over $1 billion it is, but it's $1 billion with a B. It has one of the largest and most prestigious international fellowship programs in the world, and that you should know when you make a tax-deductible donation to the foundation, you support disease prevention, provide clean water, support education, grow local communities, help mothers and their children, and promote peace. All of which, by the way, is highlighted in the Rotary magazine. So it's a shame we cannot present these in person, and I hope we do get back to whatever normal meeting is, because we should certainly congratulate Dave and all the other recipients of Paul Harris Fellows Awards. Congratulations, Dave.
Yes,
Thank you,
congratulations,
Colin.
Dave.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, very impressive, and thank you, Dave. I want to mention, Dave, I did receive your pin, and I have mailed it to you. You either will receive it today in the mail or tomorrow. I just mailed it yesterday. So congratulations. I wish we could pin it to your lapel in person, but we'll be able to do that soon, I hope. Reminder too, that Lee Johnson reminded us when we had a discussion a while back about the future of our club, that Paul Harris challenged when he was a founding father of our club as friendship, fellowship, and service, or at that time he called it mutual assistance. And as we start to rethink our direction, those are kind of some words to live by as we think about the future of our club. So again, congratulations, Dave, and thank you for the service to our organizations, both internationally and also locally.
Thank you.
Jill Cordes has an announcement. Let's see here. Jill, are you on? No, she isn't on. Christine Erke has the final results from the March Madness. She was kind enough to organize that this year through our Thursday small club group. And so Christine, it's all yours.
All right. Well, first off, I think Madness definitely described this March Madness for us basketball sports fans, seeing those top seeds drop right and left, and wow, it was amazing. It was a great season. Loved watching it. But I think what blew me away even more is as I was getting the brackets and the donations, whereas the generosity of this club. You guys, everybody stepped up wonderfully. We raised $580 through the bracket challenge, and half of that money will go to the Rochester Rotary Foundation. The other half, drum roll please, this is going to Mark Drips and Sarah Gilland, fighting it out at the end. One of them was going to take the top spot, and Mark came out on top. So Mark, tell us, what charity are you going to donate your money to?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Christine for being the enthusiast to put this together. Sue and I enjoy it. She probably enjoys it a little bit more than I do sometimes. I actually only watched the second half of the final game. Was the only game I was able to see this year. So I was pretty lucky. And there is no figuring, and I have no idea how I figured out the brackets. I actually picked the first two. I picked the final teams first out of the entire thing, and then I did my bracket from there. But there's too many choices to pick. It was a tough one, but I think the one I'm going to do this year is exercise abilities. We did a rotation day with them a couple of years ago, and it was an amazing little organization, and the work that they do with the disabled and chronic people with pain. So I'm going to go exercise ability.
Great. Well, congratulations, Mark, and thanks for contributing And I don't know how you managed to pick the winner. I basically have given up forever picking any Big Ten teams. That's for sure, because it seemed like they all dropped out after the first couple rounds. So, but thank you again, Christine, for putting this together, and a little bit of money raised for our foundation, and a little bit of money raised for your donation, Mark. So thank you very much. So I was going to introduce Jill Cordes to talk a little bit about the tree planting, but I don't see that she's on today. So I'm going to defer to, if you would look at the moccasin flower and the information on there regarding the tree planting coming up on May 1st. There's an effort that we'll need to have some volunteers to help organize and staff the May 1st tree planting, and in cooperation with the other two clubs and also with Park and Rec from Rochester. So it's a good opportunity for some service, get outside and do some outdoor activity, and it's a good environmental project of planting trees along the riverside between the Hy-Vee Bridge on Highway on 14 and the 16th Street Bridge at the Zumbro River. They've cleared out some of the buckthorn, and they've asked that we assist in helping plant 2,000 trees in that area. So it's a good opportunity and one that I think we should take advantage of. So are there any other announcements, or anybody have anything else they'd like to bring to the attention before we begin our program? Okay, if not, our program presentation.
You went too fast, Chris. I just want to point out that it's interesting on how our club, we've got a great group, and almost every one of these meetings, Paul Harris is awarded. And it kind of gives me goosebumps that we're still engaged, even if we aren't looking at each other or across the table, that we are here, and that Paul Harris thing is just terrific. So I applaud all of you.
Thank you. As many of you know, Lee has 50 years of membership, so he has the history. He's almost as old as Paul Harris. Well, not quite, but he's he probably knew him. I don't know, maybe not.
I didn't know him, and
okay. Well, in any case, thank you for that, Lee. And so our program today is Sarah Clarke of the Education Partnership Coalition, known as the EPC, I guess. She'll present the work of this coalition, which engages over 120,000 youth and families from across Minnesota through a network of community-based organizations. She will discuss their mission and give us a glimpse on how the coalition is helping narrow the worst in the nation opportunity gaps for youth and families in Minnesota. Sarah has an impressive resume of work with political and governmental organizations and has brought those experiences to the coalition. A native of Savage, Minnesota, Sarah is an attorney with a degree from the University of Minnesota, go Gophers, Big Ten, and a law degree from Mitchell-Hamlin. She lives in Minneapolis with her husband and daughter. So a Rotary welcome to Sarah Clarke. Sarah?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And Julie, thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate your time today. So I'll talk a little bit about the coalition, and then I'd love to just hear, what questions you have and what information I can share that's helpful for you. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but feel free to jump on in with questions. So I'm gonna screen share here. Give me 1 second. So you can see a little bit more. I've just got our website, which is epcmn.org. So you can see a little bit more as I'm talking here. But the EPC and Rochester's Cradle to Career is an important member of this coalition. It's a group of organizations across the state that are focused on delivering a two-generation approach to closing the opportunity gaps, as you've heard. And we do that through locally driven public-private partnerships that look to support children and families. And what's happening in Rochester looks very different than what's happening in North Minneapolis. But all of these organizations are able to really learn from each other and connect and share best practices and resources. And so it's been really incredible to see that while our communities are very different, we have different challenges, we're able to come together to do some really incredible work to support children and families across the state. So Julie thought it might be interesting for you to hear a little bit more about how this group came together. And I do want to mention that this coalition has been recognized nationally for its work on collective impact because of the unique coalition that brings together, both communities in greater Minnesota as well as the urban core. It's kind of a unique situation we have in Minneapolis. And all of these members that you see here, including Cradle to Career, are partners with national collective impact organizations, in this case, Strive Together, but also the Promise Neighborhood Institute. So I'll just share a little bit of background with you all about how this group came together. So you can see our kind of history here. But we started working together really in 2016 when Minneapolis and St. Paul connected with Red Wing, Northfield, and St. Cloud to come to the legislature and seek legislative funding collectively. And we had some really good success that year. That is also when I began talking with Senator Carla Nelson from Rochester about the Rochester Services Hub. Some of you might have been involved in those conversations. I believe the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs was really leading that work at that time. And then the following year, I had some really good conversations with Elaine Case and Audrey Betcher and Jerome Furson to kind of start what Cradle to Career has become today. So I'm sure many of you were involved in some of those conversations early on, and it's been really great to see this work come to fruition here. So a couple years later, we've continued to grow the coalition. Rochester's Cradle to Career joined in 2018. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today with 8 organizations across the state, again, focused on serving children and families. And so I want to talk a little bit about our work. As I mentioned, this model bringing together greater Minnesota and Minneapolis and St. Paul is pretty unique as we look at how other states are approaching this work. And I think it was mentioned earlier, we're serving more than 120,000 youth across the state. Our work is primarily in 2 categories right now. One, direct service to families. And I think a lot of you have seen Cradle to Career's efforts on the ground, but I'll share some stats from some of our other organizations to give you a sense of the scale and the scope of the work here. And you can find more in our report, which is also online. This is really about how we have helped families, during the dueling crisis of the pandemic across the state, but also the challenges of the civil unrest in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So for example, I'll scroll down to the Northside Achievement Zone. We've raised $300,000 for emergency rental relief in North Minneapolis. Partners for Student Success up in the St. Cloud area has raised over $120,000 to address the digital learning divide, making sure students have access to internet and devices. And so each of these organizations have really stepped up in new and innovative ways to serve the immediate needs of their communities during the challenges of 2020. And in addition to the direct service of supporting families, the work continues to have a laser focus on eliminating opportunity gaps. And each partnership does this really differently. The Northside Achievement Zone in Minneapolis has got staff embedded at public schools, charter schools, and private schools. They work directly with students as their academic navigators. Parents can go to family academy classes where they learn specific parenting skills. Similarly in Austin, we have culturally specific navigators that are helping students who maybe first generation college students navigate that process. So when I talk about locally controlled, I really mean it. The work of each partner looks different. And again, some of you may have some familiarity with the important work Cradle to Career is doing here in Rochester. So we're supporting families, supporting students, but we're also looking at how do we eliminate these really unfortunate opportunity gaps for good. And we think the key way to do that is to really build political power with parents in a new and different way. We know that the lived experiences of parents can translate into some innovative policy solutions that maybe we're not thinking about because of our differing experience. So we think those closest to the challenges are those best empowered to create the solutions. And so statewide, last year, we organized a series of workshops on specific advocacy skills for parents and for core caregivers. Understanding how different state and local governments function, understanding how to share your personal story in a way to bring others to take action, learning the importance of effective communication, starting to build relationships with your policymakers. All of those were covered in our workshop series. And we're building from that work this year. We're taking parents and core caregivers who really have found kind of an aptitude for advocacy and have created a fellowship program for 26 parents and core caregivers across the state to really further strengthen and develop their advocacy skills for their children and for their communities at both the local and the state level. And we hosted, that many of you I think were part of, we hosted our very first coalition day at the Capitol. Even though we were not at the Capitol, we had a virtual meetings with lawmakers, a virtual parent listening session with Lieutenant Governor Flanagan back on March 3rd of this year. It was really great to see parents and community leaders from the EPC organizations across the state take time to hop on some Zooms and join us for that important work. And we're encouraged by the work that's happening. We're encouraged by this partnership. We're seeing incredible results. There's so many great resources on our website as well for you to learn more. But another thing that is really encouraging is that I routinely get contacted by communities across the state that want to be a part of this coalition, that really want to join this work. And so we'll be officially adding an organization, a collective impact organization in St. Louis Park pretty shortly here. And as other communities come into contact with us, we try to provide support and resources for them to bring collective impact to their families. So this is an exciting movement. It's important work. And it's really great to see that communities across the state are looking more deeply in how they can take this locally driven approach to eliminating opportunity gaps for their students and their families. So I do want to talk a bit about our work now during this virtual state legislative session. We are trying to get some state funding for Cradle to Career and the other members of the coalition. And state appropriations are critically important for a couple of reasons. One, it sort of acts as this seal of approval, if you will, saying, the state thinks this is a good investment, and it helps Cradle to Career and the other coalition members leverage other funding sources, other public, private dollars come in once they see the state is saying that this is something that is worthwhile for investing in. And two, it also shows that the state is a committed partner in this work. And I think that's really important. We ask our schools to, do everything to help our children and our families these days, and we know they can't do it alone. So we are partnering with our schools, just like our schools can't do it alone, the state can't do it alone. So we all need to come together, really leverage the resources we have collectively to get the resources we need to support children and families. So the seal of approval and the demonstration from the state that they are a committed partner is critically important to helping secure other resources for Cradle to Career and the other members of the coalition. And so I want to talk a little bit about where we are at. This is a budget year. It is the first time in Minnesota history that we've ever put together our state's $40 billion plus budget entirely virtually. I have not physically been in the Capitol for a year, so it's certainly a crazy way to do things these days, but we are making progress. So we had a bill in House File 156 in the State House and Senate File 707 in the State Senate. The Senate file is chief authored by Senator Carla Nelson, who has been a great champion of our work. And that bill is to get new funding for all coalition members and to secure base funding for the Greater Minnesota members. And when I say base funding, I'm talking about money going from the state to these organizations for different years to come. And so we've had really good hearings on both of those bills. We're in the stage of the legislative session where we're getting into omnibus bills. I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but we are in a good position in the House Education Omnibus Bill. We've got new funding allocated for all the partnerships. We're looking at $500,000 new money coming into Cradle to Career if we're able to pass this House bill. The Senate bill also has new funding for all the partnerships, but we like the House version better. It's more funding. It allows base funding for all of these groups. So it'd be really incredibly helpful for the future of this work, both in Rochester and statewide, to pass the House position. So I'm going to take a question from the chat here about the pandemic. And that has really changed everything. So I'll show you our 2020 report here. It's really laser focused on how we've just been able to help families who are struggling with the immediate crises of COVID and civil unrest. And so we're talking about online tutoring here, giving out face masks, delivering food, just helping families meet their basic needs. And that is something, as we heard from families, that's what they needed right now. So Cradle to Career and others, I think, stepped into action to really pivot to make sure families were being supported. Prior to that, I can even show you our 2019 report. We talk a lot more in that report about our outcomes on math and on reading and, how we're really closing all of these academic and educational disparities. And of course, we're still doing that work, but we know if families can't meet their basic needs, if children can't eat, they can't learn. And so we kind of had to go back to the beginning, making sure that our families are getting their basic needs met and really focusing on that. And, on the education space, we don't have the MCAs because of the pandemic. So we are losing some data to be able to kind of compare academic progress here. So our numbers look a little bit different. You'll see this is the 2019 report. All of these great, educational focused outcomes from 2019, whereas 2020 talks about getting kids internet access, getting people food. So all of this work is continuing, but we're just really focused on meeting the immediate needs of the family. And, I'll tell you, lobbying, I love to complain about spending 16 hours a day at the Capitol. I certainly did that all the time before. I would now do that in a heartbeat after spending 16 hours a day on Zooms and on calls and texts. So, communicating effectively with our state legislators during a virtual legislative session is its own challenge. And that is why, constituents are even more important, during this virtual legislative session. So be sure that, you're talking to your senator and your representative, you're letting them know what your priorities are in this legislative session. And we love your support securing funding for our work as well. And I have another question in the chat about the bill number. I'm going to throw it in the chat. So it's Senate File 707, House File 156. That's our full request, and you see I've got it up right here. We have, in addition to Senator Nelson, chief authoring the Senate bill, we've got some great support from Rochester area legislators, including Representatives Liebling and Bolden. And now we are in, again, the omnibus bill stage of the session. And so the House Education Omnibus Bill number is 1065, but it hasn't been, the official version hasn't been put online yet. It's still in a delete everything amendment. that is far too confusing, I think, but I'm happy to go into that if you have more questions on that. So we are going to be advocating for the House position throughout the rest of the session here. And the legislative session is supposed to end on May 18th. We are constitutionally required to have a balanced budget. So I think it'll probably go a little bit longer than May 18th, but you know, we've got to get a budget, I think, finalized before the state's fiscal year ends. So there is some timeline to get us out of there at some point, but it's certainly not going to be pretty for the next 5 or so weeks of session, trying to do all of this online with the legislature that is divided. Democrats control the House, Republicans control the Senate. We've got a Democratic governor. So we certainly have our work cut out for us in the next few weeks here. So I want to just wrap up by asking for your help. I hope that we can get your help supporting funding for Cradle to Career and the Education Partnerships Coalition at the legislature. Right now, you can help out by thanking your House member for the inclusion of the coalition and Cradle to Career in the House Education Omnibus bill. And you can let your state senator know that your support for the House Education Omnibus position for the coalition. And very soon we'll be in conference committee stage. And then you can certainly help by contacting conferees that you may know and sharing your support for the House position. So there's a couple of ways you can help with this important work. I think you've already seen, you know, the difference it's making in Rochester. And, you know, I know Julie's just starting. And so the potential for this to have an even bigger impact for years to come is really exciting. So any way you can help by contacting your legislators would be great. I'll drop my contact info in the chat, but if you're willing to reach out to your House member or your senator, you know, I want to make this as easy for you as possible. I can draft an email for you, you know, send you a phone script, whatever you need here. So with that, why don't I see if there are any other questions that you might have about our work?
Okay, let's open it up to anybody that wants to unmute themselves and ask a question. Kind of try to not step all over each other, but if you have a question. Well, Sarah, maybe I could ask one question while others are thinking about their question. So the understanding I have about your funding, and that's what it's all about here, obviously, is trying to support the funding that is included in these omnibus bills. Basically goes to support the organization of and kind of the coordination of your staff and yourself and the organization. It does not necessarily go as direct funding to any of these individual organizations. You're working as assisting and putting together requests and grants and those kind of things, but the money doesn't go to, say, Cradle to Career or any of the other related coalition members per se. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a little confused by your question. Can you rephrase that?
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to get my hands around, does the money that is the coalition receives is not money that goes to support these different organizations. They have their own method of support. You're there to help support and encourage them, and also to help assist in putting grants together and funding from other sources. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. So, so right now, you know, my work is funded through, we've been able to get some, a couple of really exciting grant opportunities, again, because of the unique coalition. So I've been supporting this coalition through a grant that helps do our parent organizing work. And if we're successful, I'm showing you right now the House Education Omnibus Delete Everything Amendment right here. So if we're able to get the funding from the legislature that we're looking for, we would get money going directly to Cradle to Career. We had an amendment to fix this to confirm Rochester Area Foundation is the fiscal host for Cradle to Career. So it would be funding directly to the organization to use in ways that are appropriate under statute. And that reminds me, I want to show you, we do have our own state statute again, to provide a little more context on the program. And this kind of shows the intent of our organization and the work we're doing. So just give you some more context around this work that I will drop in the chat. And I'm seeing a question from Allie that I will respond to. She's asking if this coalition is working on the page amendment. So for those of you that are unaware, there is a proposal. Okay, this is not working in my chat, the statute. I'll get that over to you all in a second here, but there is a proposal for an amendment to the state constitution that would amend our constitution to say that all children in Minnesota are entitled to a quality education. And this coalition as a whole has not taken a position on the amendment. There's a lot of interesting political dynamics on both sides of this issue, but I think the coalition is really, the spirit of the coalition is to eliminate these worst in the nation opportunity gaps. So anything we can do that's going to help our children, I think this coalition would certainly support. So we have, one member of the coalition who is personally involved in supporting the page amendment on her own time, not as part of this coalition. And I haven't really had much discussion with the other members on where they're at. I certainly see both sides of this issue. And I'm, curious to see the ongoing political discussion around this. In order to get on the ballot, the amendment does need, I think, it's more than just your regular majority. And so that has stalled its progress so far. But I think the conversations that it's creating and new ways of looking at our opportunity gap, are sorely needed. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And so, Allie, that is a long answer to say, no, we don't have an official position on the page amendment.
I know that came about through Alan Page, is the former football player, and Supreme Court Justice, was the author of that in cooperation with, I think, another organization. And I believe he and his group made a presentation at least to a couple of the Rotary clubs, and he's done some district promotion of that as well. So I think if the information is out there, if there's interest in supporting that. It's unfortunate that everything anymore is so partisan that it boils down to you can do good in the world, but you have to have the right, you have to either be red or blue, and that's crazy, but I guess that's the world we're in.
Well, and I completely agree with you on that. And education, unfortunately, is no stranger to, the partisanship we're facing. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm so excited about this coalition. We've been working together, Greater Minnesota, Urban Core, for years now. We've been able to build, if you're familiar with the legislature and you look at our, authors list on either the House or Senate bill, we've got Democrats, Republicans from all stripes. And so I think this is one area where we can really bring folks together and get something done. And that is encouraging to me in the face of the continued partisanship and gridlock we're seeing, certainly in DC, but here in Minnesota as well.
Yeah, it's everywhere, that's for sure. Well, and Rotary makes every attempt to be apolitical. So we try to, kind of keep the higher ground, and so the more that we can kind of focus on that, the better, I think. Any other questions to Sarah before we wrap up today? I don't see anything else in. Let's see, anything else in here? I don't see anything else, Sarah, in the chat. So, well, we want to thank you for your presentation and your efforts on behalf of the coalition members, and certainly it is impacting our community directly, and we appreciate that. So, so as we close out today, I want to give thanks to Colin Aldis for hosting the Zoom meetings, for Michaela Schmidt for reading the four-way test, and Julie Brock for her ongoing words of inspiration. And certainly Sarah Clarke for joining us today and giving us a very informative program. So Sarah, thank you. And as we adjourn and go and serve, and remember, Rotary opens opportunities both in our world and in our community. So thank you all, and have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.